Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Watson. Today I'll be providing a high-level summary of the work that we currently have underway at the RPBC and also work underway to look at the RPB strategy going forward. So just by way of a brief introduction, I joined the RPBC back in March. Prior to that, spent 25 years or so working in the pulp and paper industry in technical leadership roles both in New Zealand and in British Columbia. My experience ranges from resource characterization at the fundamental fibre level, including the acquisition of SilverScan 3, through to the mill implementation of state-of-the-art inline wood and fibre quality measurement technologies, and also new product development. This was driven for the most part by working at the epicentre of BC's mountain pine beetle epidemic. And for industry, that mountain pine beetle epidemic is really one of dead trees, lots and lots of dead trees. So the RPBC's mission, just as a reminder, is to breed elite genetic material and provide knowledge, support and tools to continuously improve profitability for Australasian Radiata pine forest owners. The RPBC's breeding program has actually been described as a bit of a treasure. It's taken many years and a lot of hard work by very smart and dedicated people to reach this point with Radiata pine. And I think the point is very well made. For forest managers, it's fast growing, it's very reliable and very forgiving over a range of sites. Our current breeding objective is shown here and was developed by committee. The four components, growth rate, branching habits, stiffness and wood density, remain the essence of the current program. Bigger, faster, stronger and smaller branches if you like. The breeding program itself is best described as more of a rolling front. So on the left-hand side, annual crossing is followed by seed collection and then field testing activities and then scale up. And for a single crossing, this is a 17-year timeline just to bring new germplasm to the market. Of course, these are happening every year. Now, in terms of our operational program, last year we established 7 field trials and measured 8 existing trials. This year we'll establish a further 5 trials and complete 9 assessments. All trial data is now being uploaded to GeoMaster for easy access to our shareholders. And we're reviewing and improving both tree tagging and our sonic stem measurement technologies and evaluating the opportunity to implement new technology to replace subjective analysis like branching index. And we're using the latest UAV point cloud technology in collaboration with Indopine and Scion. And we've been collecting tissue samples over the last couple of years. This is for the development of genomic selection with Scion. And this is to address the breeding cycle timeline, which we'll discuss shortly. Recently on the breeding side, we've made major improvements to our data pipeline and genetic evaluation procedures by introducing Bolt software. This software provides a platform for delivering genomic breeding values by utilizing all traits and genomic information. This tool is widely used for animal breeding, and if you're interested in learning more, I suggest you give our breeder Mark Padgett a call. We're also now in a position to move on from GF Plus ratings to the next generation system, which is based on estimated breeding values. And these are widely employed in other fields. EBV information was posted on our website earlier this year, and there will be further communications about our transition plan later on. So our immediate challenges should really come as no surprise. They are, first of all, to deliver improved genetics, which help maximize the productive capacity of our shareholders' real estate, to minimize the timeline between breeding, deployment, and final wood product, to confirm our value proposition. Proof of genetic gain continues to occupy the thoughts of many, to enable greater access to elite germplasm, consider climate change and future breeding activities, and to consider future wood quality requirements and end uses given the 30 to 50 time horizon from breeding to product. And the onus is still on the RPBC to prove that the breeding program is in fact delivering genetic gain. Now, there's a couple of excellent publications out there by John Moore, Heidi Dungy and Mark Kimberley, which have confirmed the benefits, and then an example is shown here for volume gain of improved versus unimproved material over one rotation. And I'd encourage you to take a look at those publications if you have some time. That said, we certainly recognise that forest owners do need a combination of certainty and courage perhaps when choosing to plant elite germplasm. There are long memories out there, but we do believe that the requisite tools and information are now in place. So if we think about it in terms of a call to action, it's really about how the RPBC might better deliver elite germplasm with confidence in field performance and final product quality and with urgency, while also considering future market and climatic conditions. So at this point, I'd just like to pause briefly and talk about innovation. It's arguably the second most misused word in the English language after sustainability. The definition we used at Paprika and at Canfor was this one, which was coined by the Stanford Research Institute. These guys invented the computer mouse, the LCD, Siri, and NASA Solar Probe, just to name a few. And that is, innovation is the creation and delivery of new customer value in the marketplace that also provides sustainable return to the organization. It's about ambition, courage, and urgency for the RPBC. This is very important because our business spans that implementation space between science and operations, which is generally described as the valley of death. So therefore, an open innovation approach is really a prerequisite for us going forward. The open innovation model is one where a pipeline of internal projects is complemented by carefully selected global research projects outside the organization, while being very conscious of boundaries and, of course, not to become overextended. The program outcomes are commercialized, some of them, some are spun out, and some are just put on ice. So to support our shareholders and to ensure that the RPBC remains a viable long-term business, it's important that we expand our network of program activities, that we collaborate rather than compete, and that we leverage every dollar against other funding sources to maximize the successful implementable outcomes. And we've got to look at every opportunity, not just from within our current cohort or from within our sector. Our core capability will of course remain breeding, but to be honest, business as usual is just simply not an option. And that's simply because there are external factors out there which may be beyond our control, and they do now require consideration and action. Climate change was a significant contributing factor to the endemic mountain pine beetle vector blue stain fungus, which collectively decimated more than 70% of BC's lodgepole pine and remains a significant issue in Canada still today. And as we know, the Europeans and others have their own challenges right now, with steps being taken to mitigate such risks, including the use of alternative species. And then, of course, we all watched with horror last year the devastating fires in New South Wales, and it's a great concern to us. And just for a bit of context, the extent of these fires is shown here on a scale relative to New Zealand. And I'd really like to acknowledge Forestry Corp New South Wales for kindly providing this information. But these two examples both serve to highlight the need to do everything we possibly can to reduce rotation age with no loss of wood quality, and by any means possible. And from a personal perspective, having worked through one dead tree epidemic, that was way more than enough for me. It's also important to bear in mind that we're growing softwood, whereas a learned colleague of mine once quipped we're growing reinforcement. And right now our vehicle is Radiata pine. So with the RPBC's board, we've recently reframed our vision statement, which is to deliver prosperity from plantation forests by developing and implementing solutions that mitigate climate change and enable the manufacture of sustainable, innovative products from wood. Our strategic planning exercise is still a work in progress. We've identified our key challenges and our goals and intend to complete the plan for rollout at our December technical meeting. But we do recognize that world-class breeding is not linear. The incorporation of market feedback is absolutely essential. And for example, having spoken with a number of sawmillers lately, this SG10 requirement is currently a significant barrier to entry into the Australian framing market. So what steps can we implement to address this? And in my pulp and paper marketing experience, I'd suggest that these types of challenges will only get tougher for us. Consequently, the breeding objective that we have needs to be a living document. It must consider the future, and it must consider those scenarios or issues which we may encounter along the way. Now, I just want to make note that molecular markers in genomics is a key step linked to all traits in this particular program. And as we'll hear more about in the next presentation, the RPBC, in partnership with Scion and supported by MB, is close to achieving the aspirational goal of reducing the generational interval we discussed earlier from 17 years down to 9 years, and that's through the application of genomic selection. However, I would caution that there is still much work to do to deliver a cost-effective SNP array for the industry. And there's also still work to do to identify SNPs and even genes that are responsible for those highly heritable fundamental traits which underlie the composite outcomes like density and MOE that are key elements of our breeding objective. So our immediate priority is to transition from phenotypic-based selection to one that is genomics-based. We're on track to select seedlings based on genomic breeding values for 2021. And we're also working to develop a cheaper genotyping platform and watching the very promising 21st century tissue culture project with great interest, as that should really help speed deployment. And we'll learn more about that shortly in this session. Our genetic gain priority remains unchanged. And with that genetic gain firmly in mind, we're looking to successes in other species and the like for opportunities that may be applicable to us. And an interesting example, obviously, here is shown as with ryegrass, these endophytes. And we've partnered with the Tree Lab to identify novel endophytes for pinus growth rate and disease resistance improvements. This project is very complementary to the Forest Growers Trichoderma program. And Brazil's remarkable success with eucalyptus hybrids has certainly proven what's possible through hybridization. Alongside our shareholders Proseed and Matariki, we're developing a pine hybrids program, starting back with the Radiata attenuata hybrids, which are currently being deployed. And we anticipate a wide-ranging program in partnership with a number of companies, including Scion. And we also recognise that in the not too distant future, forest certification systems, and in particular FSC, will adjust their stance on genetic transformation. So rather than wait and watch, we need to be ready to apply this technology, or we will almost certainly be left behind, and very, very quickly. And it's going to be interesting to hear more about this later in the session too. But we should not underestimate the size of this particular challenge, quite literally. The Radiata genome is an absolute beast, as you can see. It's 8 times the size of our own. To this point, science teams have done a superb job mapping the genome, and they continue to work hard on refinements so that we will be very well placed to progress the next phase of gene discovery and transformation. Now, I touched on phenotyping a little earlier and the importance of fundamental traits, particularly in their relation to future opportunities. You may not be aware, but there are now 49 plants globally manufacturing variations of these cellulose nanomaterials, which are shown here as nanofibrils. Well, these are deconstructed fibers, if you like. Markets here are growing, and who knows where this is going to lead. And this is just one example of wood products innovations that we do need to start thinking about. And another consideration is that inline technologies to measure fundamental wood and fiber traits are becoming the norm, for example, in the pulp and paper industry. From a scanner for wood chip moisture density and species, to the inline pulp eye system, which measures all fiber properties, including fiber cell wall thickness and fibril angle, even right down to measuring and counting cellulose nanofibrils. Increasingly, this detailed product quality information is demanded by customers, and not just for those specialty applications either, also tissue, for example. And at this point, I really must acknowledge the work of Indopine and Scion that are undertaking to complete STEM mapping, which will be extremely beneficial for our program. And of course, perhaps finally, DiskBot, which now enables more detailed phenotyping to support genomic selection development based on fundamental traits. So to summarize, pretty exciting and challenging times ahead as we work hard to reduce not only the generation time, but also the rotation age of pine. We will deliver a world-class breeding program by implementing BOLT and operationalizing genomic selection, implementing future-focused phenotyping, and expanding our field trials program. In the short term, we're looking to include more drought-tolerant germplasm from Australia into our program, and seed is actually being imported as we speak. And we want to be able to exchange additional germplasm, so a Pinus import health standard application is being worked on too. Of course, we'd like to reduce the bottleneck to see more elite CP material being deployed. Moving to estimated breeding values should provide more clarity around seedling traits. Hybrids and endophytes offer unrealized opportunities for growth, disease resistance, and potentially in wood quality. And then there's the potential for genetic transformation. So the length of the forest products cycle requires that we keep looking to the future. So we must be very well connected with world-leading science. And most importantly, we must ensure that our shareholders remain very, very well informed. So in closing, I'd like to acknowledge the support of our 16 shareholder companies shown here, and also our research partners, Proceed, Scion, Theta Solutions, University of Canterbury, the Tree Lab, and Interpine. And I'd also like to thank Forest Growers for the opportunity to address you today.